Hello and welcome back to Be a Quirky Writer. Today, once again, with some nostalgia and video games. Given that last time I did discuss and mention the ecocritical perspective in video games, I thought of continuing down that same path with a game that touches on the same topic, with the added bonus of considering humanity, robots, and yet again, futuristic dystopias. This story was, after all, written by Alex Garland, who does work on these themes and who has some very interesting ideas. So let me take you back about 15 years into the past. The game is called Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Cue the clip. Now, the first thing that I have to say regards the title itself, an obvious wink to the famous Chinese classic Journey to the West. Some of you might not realize this, but it is because of that novel that today we have many, oh so many characters that were inspired by the Monkey King himself, also known as Wukong. Hell, just consider for instance the character of Goku. And I know that there is a recent game entitled Black Myth Wukong, but I still have to find the time to play it, analyze it, and eventually do a video on it concentrating on the book as well, but for now, let's get back to us. The title of Enslaved as such is just a tribute, and has little to do with the actual 16th century classic, except for the name of the main character, Monkey, his staff, his floating device, and I would say the character of Pigsy. Those are the only things that pop to my mind right now. It is true that these characters travel towards the west, but not to retrieve Buddha's scriptures as in the book. As such, the game is more of an homage than a portrayal of the novel. In Enslaved, you follow Monkey, who after having been imprisoned by mechs, manages to escape and finds himself tied, by force, to Trip. He is your typical angry, gruff, and pretty much jacked character. I mean, just look at those abs. The guy hits the gym like no tomorrow. Skipping leg day, obviously. Initially, however, little is explained from a narratological perspective about the world itself. As a player, you somewhat understand that mechs are enslaving humanity for one reason or another, but there is little lore to gather more conclusions. The slave ship that the main character was on crashes in New York, and the city that unravels under the player's eyes is one retaken by nature. With a part of humanity having been imprisoned and only several robots patrolling the streets, nature, and flora in general, had the chance to reconquer the landscape. This is a trope that has been depicted in a number of dystopian novels, obviously. It is a certain awareness for the ecological implications that lie underneath the industrializing agency of human beings, and how this in turn affects and limits nature. Going back to the story, you end up accompanying Trip to the secluded community where she once lived, one so isolated that it managed to escape the mechs. You regretfully find out, however, that that is not the case, that the community has either been killed or captured by the robots themselves. As such, Trip swears to take her revenge on the mechs. With the help of another character, Pigsy, you get hold of a Leviathan, a pilotable mech that is simply humongous, as the name suggests, and you head all together towards the Pyramid, a monolithic building in the desert from where the mechs come from. Let me, however, give you some few last considerations before spoiling the ending of the game. You have to consider that Enslaved was initially pitched as a CGI movie, and it shows a little bit. But that is not to say it is a negative. The game works because of its ability to narrate a fantastic story. Mechanically speaking, however, that also means that it is a little bit limited. As the main character, you just proceed from point A to point B, a bit of fighting and a bit of platforming here and there, but no more than that. Monkey has only a handful of combos if you want to be really nitpicky about it. That being said, the game has an exceptionally pleasant feel to it. It moves seamlessly, it's fluid, and all while having a compelling narrative. The platforming sections, the jumping around, the acrobatics that Monkey does continuously, after 15 years, they still are on point and make the controls feel simply natural. So although the gaming experience might be considered on rails because there is no deviation or exploring outside of the story itself between the movements and the storytelling, Enslaved managed to land a home run. Studio Ninja Theory did a fantastic job with this one, and I would dare say that to an extent even managed to influence a future generation of games in their own way. Horizon kinda looking at you there, buddy. Now, about that ending, and here you can skip if you don't want any spoilers. Because of a headband that Monkey is forced to wear, throughout the entirety of the game, you see various glimpses of a remote past. These glimpses depict life before the mechs, and a familiar face pops up, one that some of you might recognize. Andy Serkis. That Andy Serkis is in several of these fringes of reality, and who, by the way, he is also the one voicing Monkey. So here's the kicker. What you find in the pyramid, except for the many humans that have been enslaved by the mechs, is a man. Well, actually, the effigy of a man with a recorded message. He introduces himself simply as Pyramid, a man who lived before a war that involved the use of mechs, and who, to save humanity in his own way, decided to put the remaining humans in a Matrix-like reality. Because the war had pretty much destroyed the planet beyond repair, his choice was to create a reality, a better one, for those left in the aftermath. Strangely enough, there are no multiple choices for various endings in this game as in others. The game clearly gives the player its interpretation that such a fiction as the one created by Pyramid is simply unjust. It does deprive humans of free will after all. However, Enslaved does imply several important ontological questions for the players to answer for themselves. I will add that in just 2 or 3 minutes, Andy Serkis gives a fantastic interpretation. From what I gather, in those years, he was working as a dramatic director for Ninja Theory, and it shows. So here's the final question. Considering everything that I have said and discussed thus far, does nostalgia factor in? In other words, is the game still good, or is it just one of those memories of a good game that today is just, well, kind of mid? Well, in my personal opinion, Enslaved is a game that aged like fine wine. It is still fantastic. You might argue that because of its core gameplay and limited mechanics, it just does not hold a candle to more modern games. To that, I say that it is exactly because of its storytelling, the themes it touches, and also the questions that it asks, that the game still holds and is a masterpiece today. Anyway, that's enough from me. Don't forget to breathe, don't forget to smile, and most importantly, don't forget to go through any source of fire you might find to see if environmental damage is a thing or not, as gamers do. See you in the gaming world, until next time.